kind of frazzled, a little bit frazzled, but that rock and roll helped me center myself. Feels good to rock. There was this guy that was climbing this really tall tree, and he got way up at the top. Suddenly he slipped, and he grabbed a branch, and he was just hanging there. There was nothing else he could do but hang there. He hung there for an hour or so, and he started to feel himself getting really exhausted. And he looked up at the heavens, and he cried out, "Please help me. God, please help me." And all of a sudden the clouds parted, and a voice boomed down on high from above, "Let go." And the guy paused a minute, and he looked back up, and he said, "Is anybody else up there?" We feel like that sometimes, don't we? Our theme this month is Awakening to Transformation. And remember, our definition for transforming is more than just changing. It's more than just improving. It's more than just becoming a brighter, better version of what already is. To transform is to become something or someone that has never, up to this point in time, ever existed. And as a reminder, spiritually, we know that there is nothing to transform into, nothing to become, because we already are divine. We already are divine expressions of God right here and right now. And so this month I have been taking you through a little bit of the process of transformation. And remember our koan, which is a Zen Buddhist saying that they meditate upon to seek enlightenment. And our koan is transformation is the process of becoming that which you already are. Think on that a little bit. Transformation is the process of becoming that which you already are. And as I've discussed all month, this process of transformation is comprised of 4 stages, which occur in an ever-ascending spiral upward. Now, I ran across this great statement. I don't know who wrote it, but it says, "Life is like a book that never ends. Chapters close, but not the book itself. The end of one experience is like the end of a chapter, and on a new level, setting up the beginning of another." An ever-ascending upward spiral of consciousness and experience. No endings, no beginnings. And the 4 stages of this evolutionary spiraling process are stage 1, which is dissolving, which I told you about on the first Sunday of this month. And it's the most painful part. It's where we end up being a puddle of goo. And our phrase to help us with this stage is, "It is until it isn't." Say that with me. It is until it isn't. Stage 2 is imagining, the call of the divine within us to live our lives at a higher level of expression. And our phrase to keep us on track with this one is, "What I can see, I can be." Say that with me. What I can see, I can be. Stage 3 is reforming. Those are all those internal changes that we have to go through to reach this higher level of expression. And if we get stuck here, if we're afraid to make the necessary shifts in our consciousness, remember what I said a couple weeks ago, we either evolve or we devolve. And while we didn't have a phrase for that stage, How about this one? Shift happens. Let's say that together and enunciate very carefully. Shift happens. So that takes us to stage 4. That's where we are today, the stage of flying. And to set the stage for this stage, I have another parable for you. I've had several parables this month. Not the parable of the goldfish that I told you the first week, but the parable of the water beetle. Parable of the water beetle. Has anybody ever heard this one? Once in a little pond in the muddy water under the lily pads, there lived a little community of water beetles. They lived a simple and comfortable life in the pond with few disturbances and interruptions. And once in a while, sadness would come to the community when one of their fellow beetles would climb the stem of the lily pad and would never be seen again. They knew that when this happened, their friend was dead, gone forever. Then one day, one little water beetle felt an irresistible urge to climb up the stem. However, he was determined that he would not leave forever. He was going to come back and tell his friends what he found up there at the top. So when he reached the top and climbed out of the water onto the surface of the lily pad, he was so tired and the sun was so warm that he decided he must take a nap. And as he slept, his body transformed. When he woke up, he was no longer a water beetle, but instead a beautiful blue-tailed dragonfly with broad wings and a slender body designed for flying. And so fly he did, and as he soared high, he saw the beauty of a whole new world and a far superior way of life to what he had ever known had existed. But then he remembered his water beetle friends and how they were thinking, by now he must be dead. He wanted to go back to them, to explain to them that he was more alive than he had ever been before. His life had been fulfilled rather than ended. But his new body would not go back down into the water. He couldn't get back to tell his friends the good news. Then he understood that their time would come too when they would know what he now knew. So he raised his wings and flew off into his new joyous life. We have an advantage over the dragonfly. We can come back and share with our friends. However, sometimes they don't want to hear from us. Which is why having a spiritual community with like-minded people who will celebrate with us when we have learned to fly is a powerful and wonderful thing for everyone. We get to celebrate and be inspired at the same time. So we can never be envious of a friend or family member or congregant that has experienced flying in their lives. We want them to fly. We use it as an inspiration for our own life when someone has something to celebrate, that they have broken through, transformed, and found a more abundant life. Has anyone ever seen the movie Aquila and the Bee? Yeah? Seen it? Yeah. I think it came out around about 2006. For those that haven't seen it, Aquila is an 11-year-old from a very poor and rough part of Los Angeles who imagined something greater for herself. She imagined going to the Scripps Howard National Spelling Bee. You've all heard of the National Spelling Bee. And she had, prior to that, had a very serious dissolving. Her father had died, and in school she was very smart, but she tried to downplay that because she would be picked on if she expressed it. So she had downplayed her wonderful intelligence that she had. And now in order for her to have any shot at manifesting what she had imagined, she had to reform. She had to change. She had to lose an attitude. She had to become teachable. She had to soften herself, to go within and realize her own brilliance and not be afraid of expressing it. And a turning point for her was when she read on the wall of her tutor a quote from Marianne Williamson that we use here in New Thought Centers all the time. And it was so fun to see it in a major motion picture, even though they incorrectly attributed it to Nelson Mandela, who used it in one of his famous speeches. And everybody, lots of people, I remember sending a package to a Unity church in Little Rock, Arkansas, for Diane and I to go sing at one time. And we had that quote in there, and we had it attributed to Mary Ann Williamson, and the minister wrote back to us and said, well, I like to get things correct, and you shouldn't have attributed that to Mary Ann Williamson. It was by Nelson Mandela. So everybody gets it turned around, but nobody gets the words turned around because they are totally inspiring. And they are. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us. It is in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. That's the power that we have. We have power to affect everyone around us. We have the power to affect our world. So Aquila, she had to reform who she thought she was. And she had to readjust again and again. Every time that her dream seemed to be thwarted, she had to readjust. She had to reform. And this young girl went through reformation after reformation before she got to her transformation. And she took all that she had been through and all that she had learned and all the ways that she had been transformed into the end of the movie. And believe me, she flew. She flew high and in ways that she would have never expected. And her community flew with her, and they celebrated with her. So those of you that have seen the movie know what I'm talking about. And those that you haven't, rent a copy. And watch for those 4 stages in there of the transformation that Aquila went through as she flew and helped others to fly. So we all have the ability within us to fly. What is flying? Well, it's that transformation where we raise our consciousness, our acceptance of life, upward in that spiral of evolution. And we each have the ability to explore fully those heights of our being, to discover what it might really mean to co-create with God. We say we have the ability to do that, right? Because we're conscious beings and that we co-create with God. But what are we co-creating? Are we only co-creating what appears to be possible? Or are we creating what's deep within us that wants to be expressed? So we have to allow this spiritual awakening to take place in us, an awakening into the power and the presence that is within us. And we each have innately within us the desire to fully embody the lyrics of our song that we end with. I release and I let go. I let Spirit run my life. I love this quote from Ernest Holmes that I use as a mantra sometimes. Perfect God within me, perfect life within me, which is God, come forth into expression as that which I am. Lead me ever into the paths of perfection and cause me to see only the good. Only the good. So I'm inviting every one of you this morning to bring forth from within you that which you really are, that seeks to express through you. Allow a larger vision to emerge. Realize your essential purpose. What are we here for? What is our purpose? Our purpose is to express the heights of our being. If we are divine beings that are spiritually magnificent, that purpose is to bring that magnificence to the greatest expression possible. And to increase those possibilities by our awareness and our consciousness. To begin to understand that we are like floating on an ocean of infinite potential. And we're here to soar, to fly as we create our life. Remember, last time I spoke, I said that Ernest Holmes tells us to do this. He says, anything you can dream of is not too great for you to undertake. If you can see it, you can be it. And he also said you exist in limitless opportunities which are forever seeking expression through you. So I say to all of you this morning, say yes to that greater unfolding in your life. Say yes to it. Know that you're not just a caterpillar or a water beetle. You're really a butterfly or a dragonfly. You're learning to fly, but you'll get there. I'd like to close with this prayer of the Sufi mystic Rumi, which is, I love his writings. Rumi writes, you were born with potential. You were born with goodness and truth. You were born with ideals and dreams. You were born with greatness. You were born with wings. You're not meant for crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn to use them and fly. Tom Petty, who wrote Learning to Fly, says he doesn't have wings, but I'll bet he does now. We're all learning to fly, and we're all here to help each other and to celebrate when we do. That's what a spiritual community is all about. I love you all, and so it is.